Now, Peter and I have gotten pretty lucky in terms of the 4 projects that are coming out over the next year. First, we have Shazam, Fury of the Gods. Shazam has always been off kind of in his own part of the DCU, so he connects very well. That moves directly into The Flash, a fantastic movie that I really love that resets the entire DC universe. Then to move into Blue Beetle, a fantastic film about a kid who's a marvelous part of the DCU, and then into Aquaman 2, which leads directly into our next few projects, which I'm going to tell you about now.
Nerd! We're going to talk about the current slate of DC films that are coming out. So James Gunn basically said that, we're going to get Shazam, we're going to get Flash, Blue Beetle, and Aquaman 2. And one of the interesting things that we were speculating about before, he came out with his announcements was, is everyone just not going to go see these movies because they don't really matter anymore? But he made it clear that basically Shazam is its own part of the DCEU. So I guess they're going to continue with Zachary Levi and that whole thing. The Flash is going to reset the DCEU with his Flashpoint time travel, timey-wimey stuff. And Blue Beetle is going to be going forward, which makes sense since they're doing Booster Gold. And Aquaman 2 is basically going to be the kickoff into the new DCEU projects. So I don't know if basically, because I know that there was a lot of talk about doing reshoots to get rid of Amber Heard and bringing Ben Affleck in to replace Michael Keaton and stuff like that. We do know that there's going to be a Batman in James Gunn's rollout in this phase. But the question is Ben Affleck going to continue to play Batman?
That's a great question.
Someone else.
He's the perfect age. He's the perfect age for the Brave and the
and we're going to get into that a little bit later. So I just want to focus on the current slate, which is Shazam, Flash, Blue Beetle, and Aquaman 2. Brian, do you have any kind of speculation on how these movies are going to fit into Gunn's plan?
Yeah, I believe that there was and correct me if I'm wrong, but last year, toward the end of the year, October, it was from July to October, they were doing random reshoots based on Gunn's direction and edits to the Flash. So if that's the case, then I can see them cutting some things out that might have affected his slate going forward, and maybe even adding some things that can help reinforce his slate. The Flash movie is like the perfect vehicle in which to modify the universe without having to completely disregard the last 10 years. In the comic books, they've used the Flash 4 times to completely reset the universe. Mm-hmm. You don't have to throw away all your old comic books and start follow a new story. They've used the Flash multiple times.
What's funny is we got reports last week about Jason Momoa's meeting with James Gunn, and they said that he came out of that meeting pumping his fist and cheering and celebrating and stuff like that. And there had been speculation that they were going to recast him as Lobo, or possibly just cast him as Lobo and keep him as Aquaman as well, a weird double casting thing.
You could do that.
But it almost sounds like he's going to continue on as Aquaman no matter what. What do you think about that, Danny?
I think that's a terrible idea. Like I said, I don't like this whole picking and choosing thing. Pick one. So if we're rebooting, I just I don't know. I'd rather actually think he's perfect for Lobo. I mean, I think he was totally miscast for Aquaman. I think he's perfect for Lobo, but I don't know. As far as them, I know Brian, because I watch your show. I know you think he could do both. I think that would just confuse people like my mother.
Dude, Lobo is a giant, giant prosthetic guy. Look, remember Thanos and Cable, same actor. How many normies knew that was the same actor?
Yeah, but they weren't in the same universe together.
They weren't. Yeah.
I mean, yet they are now.
Well, we're not going to see him on the screen at the same time.
Okay, yeah. I mean, but how many Lobo comics where you saw Aquaman and Lobo on the same screen?
I wish Jason were alive. He could answer that. I was
none. None.
There's probably none. Yeah.
There is none. There is no Lobo stories and Aquaman stories that cross over.
Lobo is
he's a space
Superman villain,
Ghost Rider,
or not villain, but
I mean, he's
more of
a weird anti-villain with Superman. Yeah, he's a cosmic character.
He's a space biker, right? Isn't that his
Right.
thing?
He's honestly perfect character for James Gunn. Like if you said, who's James Gunn going to bring in universe? Yeah, Lobo, 100%.
Yeah,
Lobo.
yeah.
But listen, using the Flash movie to make changes to the current universe and normies aren't going to trip out. This is the way to do it. I mean,
No, I agree with that. Flashpoint did it perfectly with the comic books.
Although you would think that they'd swap Aquaman and the Flash, so like the Flash would be the thing to lead into like the new thing. Because if the Flash happens chronologically before Aquaman 2, then that means that everything in Aquaman 2 is now the new Aquaman.
I was saying that in the chat, and then somebody else in the chat, I can't remember who it was, said, "Well, it doesn't have to chronologically come after," but I was like,
no, but it should.
It
And you know
should.
what's crazy is remember the Flash was supposed to be the Aquaman's supposed to come out this last December.
Yeah.
And then the Flash is going to come out this year. It was supposed to happen that way. So they changed it. They must have changed it for a reason. And the fact that James Gunn is saying that Aquaman is going to kick it off, maybe they made changes to Aquaman that are reflections of what changes in
right.
the Flash.
We're going to spend all this money to get rid of Amber Heard. We might as well make it fit with James Gunn's division.
they did say that Aquaman 2 is going to be the kickoff to like the new DC plan.
Didn't James Gunn like specifically say in this video that we haven't seen yet that Flashpoint is the perfect launching point for the new DCU?
Well, he said that it'll reset the entire DCU.
He says it'll reset. He actually says.
So I don't see how that has anything to do with Aquaman.
Well, because Aquaman comes after it. So some of
Aquaman,
those changes are going to reflect.
Yeah, the Flash comes out in the summer and Aquaman comes out during Christmas. And basically...
And Blue Beetle's in between those two.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you guys about Blue Beetle because like that was the thing that he kind of glossed over. It was very obvious where he's like, I'm kind of stuck with this movie now. So I'm just going to mention it. But you know what's interesting is that in the comics, Blue Beetle and Booster Gold are kind of like buddies. Like they play an important part in each other's stories. So the fact that they revealed a Booster Gold thing later on kind of tells me that Gunn took that into consideration with his forthcoming plan. But out of all these, like, I don't think a lot of people are excited about a Blue Beetle movie, even though it's starring Miguel from Cobra Kai.
Yeah. No one is excited about Blue Beetle. No one's excited about Blue Beetle comic books.
Hey, our friend Paulie, Latino Slant, he's super stoked for it. And
it's a very unique character.
It's a Hispanic superhero.
I made a post earlier that and this kind of goes along with this whole slate of things. They need to start attracting and getting the money out of more than just these 90s comic book shop hanger outer nerds, right? Blue Beetle, nobody gives a shit about Blue Beetle.
So true.
Nobody in the normie world gives a shit about Booster Gold.
You hold your tongue.
Nobody gives a shit about the Authority.
Booster Gold.
But you're not a normie, Matt. You're not a normie. Neither nobody in our panel, nobody in this thing that was watching this show right now is a normie that has any interest in watching these movies for these obscure characters that nobody cares about.
No one knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy were before they started getting their own movies either. So movies are a great vehicle to take obscure comic book characters and put them in the forefront.
But introducing them a little bit in the legacy in the big movies makes a little more sense than just coming out the gate with this Blue Beetle movie.
Well, I also have an issue with them calling their shot, and correct me if I'm wrong, like Marvel did not call their shot. They didn't say, "Oh, we got this big 10-year plan." They took a gamble on Iron Man, and then built off of that. Am I right?
That's not necessarily true, though.
But,
they did have a plan, but it depended on the success of Iron Man.
It hinged on Iron Man. Okay.
Yeah, when Iron Man did well, though, the next Comic-Con, they were out there with like a whole timeline of movies.
And you had to remember that they had that in credit scene with Nick Fury. So there was a plan in place. It was just dependent on the success of the film.
But they didn't call their shot like Babe Ruth. You know what I mean? They did it, and if it worked, like what if this first movie comes out, or these first several movies, or I guess he says the kickoff is Superman Legacy. What if it flops? Then what? Like
Superman Legacy is not going to flop.
No,
Superman Legacy is not. No matter how much we don't like the character, let's say they cast someone where we're all unhappy with him, still not going to flop. Nothing with the Superman in the title is going to flop. That's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, even Superman Returns, which is a terrible movie in my opinion,
But
like
I
did
love
really
Brandon Routh.
well.
I
Did
love
really
Brandon
well.
Routh, but that movie was not a good movie.
So the basically the first phase of this 8 to 10 year plan, and what was interesting when Gunn was talking about this is that he said that this plan spans films, TV, animation, and gaming.
And
So
gaming.
every DC game is also going to be integrated into the story that they're going to be telling. So this is a very holistic approach that Marvel certainly isn't taking.
I think it's smart. It'll get me back
Super
into
smart.
it'll get me back into the video games. It really
Yeah,
will.
so-
Like if I got to play the game to get part of the story,